Okay. All right. I'm just going to go over some of these terms. Demand versus quantity demanded. Demand is timer. It's a shift of the curve. It's taste, income, market size, expectation, related goods, which are substitutes and complements. Taste, income, market size, expectation, related goods, which are substitutes or complements. All right, substitutes are goods when price goes up. The price, say, of Coke goes up, the demand for Pepsi goes up. So price of one good goes up, the demand of the other good goes up. And I like to use Coke and Pepsi. So I think if the price of Coke goes up, people buy less Coke, they demand Pepsi. That's a substitute. Complements are two things that go together, like hot dogs and hot dog buns. They're in an inverse relationship. If the price of hot dogs go up, people buy less hot dogs. Therefore, the demand for hot dog buns go down. Okay? There's two questions on the redo that are basically just substitutes and complements. Now, when I'm talking about substitutes and complements, remember a positive number in cross-price elasticity is a substitute and a negative number is a complement. All right. And while I'm talking about cross-price elasticity, I would mention the cross-price elasticity is the percentage change of quantity of product A over the percentage change of price of product B. And again, it's substitutes and complements. And by the way, guys, at any time, if you have a question, just interrupt me or put it in the chat. Inferior goods are goods when income goes up, demand goes down, and when income goes down, demand goes up. All right, so income and demand have a reverse, income and demand have a reverse relationship. All right, it has nothing to do with price. It is about income. Normal goods, income up, income down, demand down. Now, if I'm talking about these, I should also talk about income elasticity. Income elasticity is percentage change in quantity, which is always on top, over percentage change in income. Positive number, normal good, negative number, inferior good. All right. I went over timer. I'll go over rat nest. Rat nest is resource prices, which under resource prices, wages, anything with cost of production, anything with machinery, anything that helps make things. Alternative production. If you remember on the last test, it was alternative. Do you want to make corn or wheat? You're going to make the one that makes you the most profit. Technology, number of sellers, expectations, subsidies that are always for now going to shift supply right, and taxes, which are going to shift supply left. Any question on any of these terms, again, you could put it in the chat or you could just put on your mic and tell me. Yeah, an excise tax is a per unit tax that will, at least for now, shift supply to the left, while a subsidy is the government giving you an incentive to make, like the government giving you $1 for every bushel of corn you make, so it reduces your cost, and that will shift supply to the right. Are you good, Billy? Okay. All right. All right. Now I'm just going to do some multiple choice and ask you to give each other like 40 seconds to think before you answer. So no one type anything in. On a downward sloping straight line demand curve, which of the following is always true? Take a minute. All right, I'll count to 3 and type in your answers. 1, 2, 3. What do we have? I got one person who has A. Anyone else? I've got a person B. Any other? I've got C. I've got some C's. Anyone else going to take? Okay. The answer is C. Okay. So on a demand curve, the middle, and pardon me if that isn't the middle, is unit elastic. The top is elastic. And the bottom is inelastic. So as you travel down the demand curve, it becomes less elastic and more inelastic. Okay. I would say for sure, if I was Ryan DeWitt, that I would know that curve because that would be one question on tomorrow's redo. So you only have to know 29 now. Sure, we're making that easy. All right. Let's see what we get. This is production possibilities. You don't need that. All right. The quantity of acrylic paint supplied decreased from 500 tons a week to 400 tons per week when the price of acrylic paint decreased from 20 tons to 10 tons. The price elasticity for supply for acrylic paint over this price range is. I'll give you a minute. If you guys have calculators near you, feel free to use them. Okay, I'll count to 3. You could type in what you have. 1, 2, 3. What do we got? I've got a D. I've got an E. I've got a D. I've got a C. I've got C. Okay. All right. So we know the formula, right, is percentage change of quantity supplied over percentage change in price. Okay. So I got to figure out what the percentage change is, and that's new minus old over old. So the new is 400. I'm just going to put 4. I think I could get away with it like that. 400 minus 500, the old, over the old. Okay. And that's going to give me new minus old over old. That's going to give me like negative, but for this one, it's absolute value. So it's going to give me 1/5, right? So 1/5, I'm going to put 0.2 on the top. That's quantity supply. Now I've got to do the change in price. So the new price is 10 minus the old price, which is 20. over 20. So that's going to give me 10 over 20, which will be a half, which is 0.5. So I have 0.2 over 0.5. So that's going to be 2/5 less than 1. So that's going to be relatively inelastic. Remember, for this, 1 is unit elastic, more than 1 is elastic, less than 1 is inelastic. 0 is perfectly inelastic. Okay, any questions on this? Because we had answers all over the place. There's going to be 5 elasticity. So you could type in a question in the chat, or you could turn on your mic. Perfectly inelastic is infinite. So price is not going to change there. Evan, for this, it's for the perfectly elastic, for the supply and demand elasticity, it's an absolute number. So you don't worry about negatives or positives. Yeah, Ted, the more like an I, the more it's inelastic. So like an inelastic demand curve would be more like that. And an elastic would be flat or more like that. Is that what you were asking, Ted? Because at the top of the curve, like you're getting 9 and 8. So you're getting like a difference of $1, but the quantity is going to change more as because of the slope of the curve, even though the dollar amount is going to be the same. Okay, great questions. Perfectly inelastic is straight up and down like an I, Billy, and it's 0. The coefficient is 0. No problem. All right. And guys, I would know all the formulas, the pluses and minuses. I didn't even realize that I could have saved myself a lot of writing. All right. All right, the excise tax. I'm going to give you like 2 minutes to go through this, and then I'll go through it. Because I think like there's a couple of questions on excise tax. They could be easy questions if we know this graph. And by the way, if you have a piece of paper, which you should have, I would like copy this graph, and if worse comes to worse, take a picture of it in your phone, and like I could go over it, and so you could like just review and study it. A couple of people got these questions wrong. on the test. So I want to make sure we get them right. Consumer surplus before tax. All right, so the price is 5. Consumer surplus is above the price and below demand. So this kind of red triangle I'm making, and again, that's all consumer surplus. Total expenditure, all that is price times quantity. Before the tax, I've got $5 times 90. That's going to give me $4.50. Okay, here's a favorite of theirs, tax per unit. I take where the supply curve, right, touched, the new equilibrium, I draw it straight down to the old supply curve, and then across. So the new equilibrium is 6 minus, when I go straight down to this line, 4, the tax is $2 per unit. Okay. Now, I could use this line too, the 4 to the 2. Any line between the two supply curves will work. Total tax revenue that the government gets. I'm paying $2 per unit. At the tax revenue of 6, I have 60 units. 60 times 2 is 120. Would not be at all surprised if they asked you something like that tomorrow. Okay. Now, amount of tax paid by consumers. The consumer used to pay 5, right, before the tax. You just look at S in demand, he paid 5. Now the consumer pays 6. So the consumer's tax is $1. I'm losing where did my writing tool go? Here it is. Okay, so it's $1. Now, I know if the total tax is 2 and the consumer's paying 1, the producers are paying 1. Now, is it always going to split like that? No, this time it did. Now, another way I could look at it is the equilibrium is 5, the producers are getting 4, so the tax is 1. Total expenditures after tax. I'm going to say 6 times 60 is 360. And that's the same for the total revenue for the firms after tax. Expenditures are going to equal revenues. Why? For every $1 Spiro spends, I make $1, or I get total revenue of $1. So they're going to equal. All right, consumer surplus after tax. Well, $6 is the new price. We know consumer surplus is above the price and below demand. That's consumer surplus. Now, this doesn't ask for producer surplus, but we're getting $6. We have to pay $2 in the government. So the producer's really getting 4 below the price and above supply. There is your producer surplus. And then right in here, this triangle is your deadweight loss. Okay. Now, the chat seemed to have maybe disappeared here on me. Okay. Sebastian, I am going to post the video. I sometimes don't know. It's not up to me when this video is ready. It's up to Zoom. So I will post it as soon as I get it. Okay. Is there any question about anything that I just went over on the excise tax? I know there is expenditures. Yes, Elliot, it's price times quantity. It's the same as the total revenue. Any other questions on this? I think there's two, Don. The two that we should get right, though. I think if you know this graph, you're going to get both those questions right. Could I go over 4 again? Oh, all right. We figured out the taxes too by looking at this straight line. Okay. If the tax is 2 and at the tax price, I'm selling 60, 60 times 2 is 120. Does that make sense, Kevin? Okay. Any other questions? We're 6 and 4 on. 4 total tax revenue. I just went over. 6 amount of tax paid by producers. Well, if you know it's a $2 tax, because you take the equilibrium down, if the consumers go from 5 to 6 and are paying $1, you know the producers have to be paying the other dollar. Does that make sense, Sebastian? Okay. Okay. All right. Let's see this question. The difference between the price at which a consumer would be willing to pay for a candy bar and the actual market price that she buys is best known as. Give you like 45 seconds for this one. We kind of had this. I think we had ice cream cones, though. Okay, what do we got here? Let's type in the answer. 1, 2, 3, go. I got D's going crazy. Okay, it is consumer surplus. And the difference between the market price and what you're willing to sell would be producer surplus. All right, good job on that one. There's 2 or 3 consumer surplus questions. One of them is like knowing it's above the price and below demand. Okay, this is kind of a tricky one, so it's a good one. In 2014, 13 billion bushels of corn were harvested and sold for $3.70. The next year, 13 billion bushels of corn were harvested and sold at $3.50. Which of the following changes in supply and demand could have caused this? Okay, I'll give you like a minute to think. I'm going to underline 13 and 13. So that tells me quantity staying the same, but they want price to go down. All right, I'll count out. 1, 2, 3. What do we have? I've got an E. I've got a couple of E's. Okay. All right. Well, the first thing is, I know I need price to go down. So I'm going to switch supply to the right, which a lot of you had. If I switch supply to the right and that's all, I get price down, but I get quantity up. And quantity didn't change because it went from 13 billion bushels to 13 billion bushels. And that's kind of why I underlined it. So I need something to get price down and quantity down. So I'm going to shift demand to the left, okay? Which is B. If I shift demand to the left, I get price down, right? Which is what I want because I went from 370 to 350. And I get quantity down. So now I've got quantity down here and quantity up here, so they could balance to stay the same. So B as in broccoli would be the answer here. Again, either put it in the chat or put on your mic if you have a question on this. So I'm just going to go through how I try to figure these out. Like, I look that the price is down. So I know that both supply and demand have to shift. Oh, because supply shifted down, Billy, and that did increase quantity. But because for B, demand decreased, that took the quantity away. So we got back to 13 billion. Does that make sense to you, Billy? Okay. So on these, like I was saying, Billy, what I try to do is I know price has to go down on both of them. So I look how price could go down on both. If I shift supply right, it goes down, and then demand left. And then I know quantity has to go up on one and down on the other. Because I can't just shift one. If I shift one of these curves, quantity is going to change. So I have to try to do that kind of balancing act. And I do think there was a question like this on the first test. I don't know, is there a question like this on the redo? Okay. Are there any questions? There are no questions on marginal utility. And you guys know how to figure, yeah, there's none like this. All right. A fire destroys a wheat crop, an input for cereal. If the supply and demand for cereal are both relatively inelastic, and the fire does not impact the quality of the wheat that make it to the market, which of the following will most likely occur to equilibrium price and quantity? I'll give you like 45 seconds to think about it. All right, I'll count to three. Let's see what we got. 1, 2, 3. What do we have? I've got an E. Anyone else? I've got a C. I've got some C's. Anyone else gonna try? I've got some C's. Okay. All right. Seabass, soon as I see input, that's a resource. Okay. So if a fire destroys a wheat crop, that's a resource for cereal. Okay. I know supply is shifting left. If supply shifts left, my price is going to go up, right? Because here's my new price, and that's up. And my quantity is going to go down. Okay. Seabass, does that make sense to you now? Okay. And by the way, if the like relatively inelastic means nothing. Impact the quality of the wheat? Nah, means nothing. Is that what you're asking, Elliot? Yeah, the inelastic is there to kind of throw you off. Okay. All right. This is one that a lot of you guys, this type of problem was one that a lot of you guys got wrong. So let's take a minute and look. If the demand for Raven tickets is very elastic, an increase in the price, okay? So we have a very elastic demand with an increase in the price. Okay, I'll count to three. 1, 2, 3. What do we got? Nice. Okay, good job. All right, for elastic, price and total revenue are opposites. So an increase in the price will decrease total revenue. A decrease in the price will increase total revenue. For inelastic, they both go in the same direction. Good job. There were 2 of these tomorrow. Seabass, this is more of a memorization than a graph. Woof. All right. Suppose a consumer purchased 2 goods. This is asking you about the maximizing satisfaction. And I'm just going to remind you of that formula because it's really, that's D. Whenever you see maximizing satisfaction, it's MUX over PX equals MUY over PY. I don't really recall one of those on the test, to be honest. All right, whoop, that was the last one. All right, that was the last question. Does anyone have any random questions that they would like asked before we close out? You could either turn on your mic and ask me, or you could put it in the chat.
Do you know if there's a double shifter on this one?
I would assume there is.
Okay.
Billy,
What does
are you
it
saying the last one, the one that's showing right now? anytime you see maximize satisfaction, the formula is D, the MU of X over the price. So the marginal utility of X over the price of X equals the marginal utility of Y over the price of Y. And that was like, if X is the greater number, we buy more X. Okay. Any other questions people have?
Mr. Bressler,
Yes.
what does it mean when you say like Ravens tickets are super elastic?
It means when price goes up, quantity demanded goes down a lot. So when price goes up and quantity demanded goes down a lot, total revenue goes down. Did that
Okay.
make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. What would you do if you were us taking the test? Okay, I would underline. Going over the test with people, sometimes they don't know. It's not like they don't know the knowledge. They don't know what the question's asking. Like on one of them where like those bushels were staying the same, we had a similar one to that. So that'd be one thing. I think on a whole, you guys did good on the supply and demand on the shifters. I would know all the formulas for elasticity, income elasticity, what's the cross price and demand elasticity, and then know like the pluses and minuses, you know, and for demand elasticity, greater than 1 inelastic, 1 unit elastic, under 1 inelastic. People seem to have trouble with inferior and normal goods. So I would know that. And the last thing is the law of demand. All right, I should have put a question on this because people did bad on this. All right, the law of demand is two things here. One is price and quantity demanded are inverse. So price up, and they're not going to ask it like that, and quantity demanded down. They're going to say like the price of Ravens tickets went up and the quantity demanded went down. This is an example of the law of demand. And then the three things that make demand downward sloping is substitution effect, which is if the price of Coke goes up, I'm going to just buy Pepsi. The second thing is the income effect, and that's a little trickier because that's not about income. That's about purchasing power. So that's saying Connor could buy 10 Cokes at $1, but when the sage raised it to $2, he could only buy 5. And then the third is the law of diminishing marginal utility, which is as I eat more chocolate, I like it less and less. Those are the things, Elliot, that I think I would focus on. I mean, I talked about a lot of things, but I think those are the things that I saw guys who didn't do well screw up. And then the last thing, I wouldn't get stuck at any problem. If I don't think like a double shifter comes and I don't think I know how to do it, I'm skipping and going on to the next. I don't want to guess problems that I might know. Like some of you guys guessed number 30, which was like beef caused heart problems. And that like, you know, is taste and preference. And I think most of you would have got it right, but a lot of you had to guess it because you're in time problem. So I would skip and make sure like I looked at all 30 of them and then go back to the ones I don't know, because there's a good chance if I don't know the formula for cross price elasticity, I'm going to guess and get it wrong anyhow. So I might as well come back to it. And if I'm rushed, I'm guessing anyhow. So I'd rather guess on those. Is that what you wanted, Elliot? Okay. Any other questions? Okay, and just a last reminder, this is like any other redo. In the fact that you could only do better. Okay, so you could only do better. So think about the things you struggled on individually, work on those. Let's try to get better, a better score tomorrow. Okay? All right, if there's no other questions, I appreciate you guys coming on tonight, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.